Welcome back. It has been a tough week across the U.S. So many people feeling a profound sadness because of last weekend's shooting in Pittsburgh. 11 people gunned down inside a synagogue, and victims ranged in age from 57 to 94 and included two brothers, a doctor, a husband and a wife married for 60 years. And in Denver, hundreds came to Temple Emmanuel to remember the victims. Governor Hickenlooper and Denver Mayor Michael Hancock were among those in attendance. Now, the shooter faces dozens of charges: murder, committing hate crimes, obstructing the practice of religion, and other crimes, and he could ultimately face the death penalty. That crime and others have also opened up conversations about what is going on in our country. Stats from the FBI show hate crimes are up in most major cities, and about 1 in 5 hate crimes prompted by religious bias. Well, joining us to talk about some of these issues are Scott Levin, the Regional Director of the Anti-Defamation League, and Nicole Meliku, the Executive Director of the Colorado Immigrant Rights Coalition. So thank you both first for being here for this very important conversation. And what really comes to mind first when you see those images, when you hear these stories, these people's lives? Yes, how this is all happening.
This was a very trying time, been a very difficult week for the Jewish community, but I think it is for all communities of faith. Anytime that you think something like this can happen in a sanctuary, a place of worship, it doesn't matter whether you're Jewish, Muslim, Christian, Sikh, or any other religion, it's very challenging.
And I would say we feel an immense sadness for the Jewish community and for every person that is a victim of hate crime in whatever form it takes, right? We know that increase is happening across the country. I think we're really struggling with the divisions in this country and sort of going back to trying to find center around what is motivating so many of these crimes that are happening, and of course stand in deep solidarity with the Jewish community. And we're present that day as members of the Latino community, certainly understand the plight of, folks to fight back against anti-Semitism in every form.
And I think it's important to have these conversations to better understand one another. But what is it that you see in your communities as you talk to people about where this comes from? What is the root?
Well, I would say that racism, anti-Semitism, misogyny, and all of the other isms that we have out there have been around for a long time. This is not
forever,
new.
yes.
What's happened that's different is there seems to be an emboldenment that's taken place. Just looking at anti-Semitic incidents alone right here in Colorado, over the prior 3 years, we saw them increase from my office, what we were tracking, from 18 to 45 to 57. Just in a 3-year period of time in Colorado. So there certainly has been an emboldenment that's occurred in these past few years.
And certainly the state of play in the national politics and the schematic and the way that our commander-in-chief talks about certain things have certainly stoked fuel to the fire. We see that a lot of the hate speech, a lot of the things coming out of an extreme agenda really trickle down to the hearts and minds of folks who are already on the fence and feeling somewhat insecure about the changes in demographics, the changes that we see happening in media. And so people are feeling emboldened, like Scott said, to really act on those impulses. And what's concerning to us is that we in the Latino community are actually seeing the beginnings of things that aren't really full hate crimes yet, but there's certainly incidents of intolerance and bigotry that are happening in our grocery stores and our communities, things that often can be like folks can actually be charged with a racial bias
or with a hate crime. So how do we counter that? How do we open up conversations so that we can counter what really is just a few people in, I think, in this great world?
I would hope that it's just a few people, but I think the real way to do it is similar to what we did on Sunday night following the horrific shootings in Pittsburgh that took place. The community came together. It wasn't just the mayor and the governor that were there, but the police chiefs were there, the interfaith leaders were there, people of every color, stripe, and origin and identity were there. And the fact that people came together in that way, not just to provide support for the Jewish community, but to say that, look, if you're going to go to a sanctuary and have freedom of religion, it means you can't be in fear to do so. All of that is a sign that I think there are a lot of people out there that actually are good and do want to be supportive of each other, and we need to lift that up.
So what do you say to families? Like, how do you have a conversation at home about this, about protecting your children? I mean, when it's your family that you feel protective of, how should those conversations go? What should we be saying to our kids?
I think we really need to get back to the art of conversation, right? Put those phones down and let's talk about feelings, and let's talk about what's happening in our school. Is there an increase in bullying in our local community, in our schools? How do we counter that? I think getting back to the dinner table and having those conversations, not only with your own family, but families in your neighborhood.
What do those conversations look like?
They're rooted in dialogue and understanding, trying to get to uncover what is the basis for that fear. Is it fear that people feel like the world is changing and they're not part of that change? Is it that people think that something is being taken away from them? And the dialogues we've had in our work many times, especially around the conversation in immigration, is that people feel that they're losing something and something new is replacing that something. And so we need to figure out what is at the basis of that. How do we speak to that? How do we really connect in our common sense of humanity that will get us back to a place of mutual understanding?
I would add to that also, I think what we have to talk about is that our diversity in America is our strength. And we've sort of gotten away from that as we've sort of polarized ourselves, not just politically, but also in terms of the tribes that we belong to, that everybody is separating from each other. You know, I don't think we're a melting pot anymore. It's a good thing that we do have separate identities, but we need to have respect for each other, and we need to talk to our kids and start there about being allies for one another.
Absolutely. Nicole and Scott, thank you so much for your input and your insight today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.